Let's switch, Ruth, to the Democratic side. Hillary Clinton, in a moment by the rope line, had a very pointed retort to somebody who was charging her about taking money from oil and gas interests, which was a line that the Sanders campaign. What did you think of that moment?
I never think it's a good idea to be wagging your finger at people when you're in politics. It does not translate
which is
well.
What she did in this
which is
exchange.
what she did, and it's a lesson. I don't want to get in trouble for doing it to
No,
you.
you may, believe me, that's your...
And it was illustrative of a frustration that she's feeling that's totally understandable. She was on the other side of this transaction 8 years ago when she stuck in the race when it was rather clear that Barack Obama was going to be the nominee. It's reasonably clear, though not certain, that Hillary Clinton is going to be the nominee. But Bernie Sanders is an irritant. He has won a series of primaries. He may well, probably more likely than not, to win Wisconsin, and he is getting under her skin.
And the Clinton campaign would say she's not irritated that he's getting under her skin, but that he keeps saying that she's captive of these interests and she's not. That would be what their argument for why she...
And a double standard, why don't you go look at his fundraising history or his voting history? Why are you always looking at ours? What it did more than anything is expose the real private frustrations they've had over the course of the last few weeks, that while he has all this money and he's still running, they can't turn totally to focus on Donald Trump and the Republicans, which they'd really like to do. And you're right, the shoe's on the other foot. But, I think there's some concern that if they don't start trying to define him now before he defines her, there could be a real trouble for them later in the summer.
Can I say, I have a feeling we should keep our eye on New York. I think Anthony just said she's 10 points ahead or 8 points ahead.
53-43, yeah.
All right, 10 points ahead. However, I went to one of her rallies in New York at the Apollo Theater the other day. People were enacting the appropriate enthusiasm, but this was not wild Hillary love. The sisterhood of the traveling pantsuit is not there. Then I see, then Bernie goes to the Bronx and he's got X thousands of people, yay, really cheering. There's something, I feel like I'm a New Yorker. Something's going on in New York, and we're not seeing it in the polls yet, maybe.
Right. No, I totally agree. I think there's been this almost annoying smugness around the Democratic Party, just to think that all of the mishigas is sort of wrapped around the other party, and it's all around Trump. This kind of reminds me of the Simpsons episode where Lisa Simpson wants to be a vet, and she saves her first nuisance animal. The Clinton campaign seems to be treating the Sanders campaign like a nuisance animal at this point, where in fact the debate sort of rages, and this is a debate that the Democrats need to have.
Speaking of debate, they're having a debate now over the debates.
Yes, and how could it interfere with a basketball game, which, in my house is a really big deal. It just goes to the continuing nuisance factor, but I think that the thing that's so fascinating is if you imagine a Clinton-Trump race, it's not a popularity contest, it's an unpopularity contest. Both of them are negative with voters. We normally talk about enthusiasm gaps, but here the gap would be for both of them. He is way more unpopular than she is, but it would be a kind of remarkably sort of dreary race.
Sour. Well, who do you dislike least? All right.
Well, it's springtime. Unfortunately, we're going to have to end on that sort of depressing note. So thanks to all of you for joining us here, and we'll be right back in a moment.